What would you do if your toxic mother-in-law lied about you in public, on Facebook? Imagine scrolling through social media only to find your name twisted in a crazy mill story. Betrayal hurts, but when it comes from family, that cuts deeper. Let's unpack this family drama podcast style. You know, it's funny how the smallest moments can reveal the biggest truths about people, especially family. So picture this. You're a new mom, still figuring out life with a baby under one, and instead of taking your usual weekend trip with friends, you choose to stay home. You want to be present. You're bonding with your child, enjoying peaceful moments with your husband, just a quiet weekend of diapers, cuddles, and coffee. You've already told your mother-in-law you're not going on that trip this year. She asked months ago. You were honest, and she nodded. No drama, no questions. Seemed like the end of the conversation, right? But then, something strange happens. One night you're scrolling through Facebook, just unwinding after putting the baby to sleep. You see a post, a heated one, about parents who selfishly leave their babies for weekend getaways. And right there, under the comments, you see it. Her name, your mother-in-law. She wrote, "LOL, I agree with you. My DL left the baby at home with my son for the weekend. The baby isn't even one yet." Wait, what? You reread it, and again. She wasn't joking, she wasn't confused. It was a deliberate public comment, a complete fabrication. And that's when it hits you. This isn't just a misunderstanding, this is a lie, dressed up as a casual remark. This is a classic toxic mother-in-law move that hits below the belt. Now here's the twist. You're literally sitting at home next to your husband as you read that comment. So what do? Stay silent and let her smear your name? Or speak up? You respond, "Really? Because I'm actually sitting at home next to your son right now." No yelling, no insult, just a quiet truth that exposes the lie. Some might say, that's petty. You didn't have to respond. But let's pause here. This wasn't just any lie. This was a subtle attempt to paint you as an irresponsible mother on a public platform. This is the kind of passive-aggressive tactic we see in so many Just Normal podcast stories. These seemingly small jabs are the tools of a narcissistic mother-in-law trying to control the narrative. And when you push back, politely, firmly, you're suddenly overreacting. Isn't that how it always plays out? Gaslight, lie, deny, repeat. This isn't just husband-mom drama. It's a pattern, a story echoed in countless crazy mill stories, where the mother-in-law crosses boundaries, rewrites reality, and expects silence in return. But silence, in cases like this, becomes complicity. So here's the question I want to leave with you. At what point does keeping the peace become sacrificing your dignity? Have you ever called out a family? Let me know in the comments. This is more than just a relationship drama podcast. This is real life. And sometimes the truth needs a voice. Have you ever been made to feel like you're the villain for simply telling the truth? After that comment went public and I responded with a single honest sentence, I expected one of two things, an apology or silence. But instead, the next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother-in-law. Not a sorry or I misunderstood, but rather, you're overreacting. Overreacting to being lied about, publicly. That moment right there, that's what we call emotional manipulation. A tactic we've seen countless times in toxic family Reddit stories and wife versus mother-in-law conflicts. When someone crosses a boundary and you call it out, suddenly you're the dramatic one, the aggressor, the problem. Let's pause here for a second, because this isn't just about one lie or one Facebook comment. It's about a pattern of undermining, of small, quiet betrayals that build up over time, until one day you realize this isn't just a personality clash. This is a narcissistic mother-in-law dynamic, where your choices, your motherhood, even your presence, are constantly under passive attack. What makes it more complicated is the silence from your partner. Now, don't get me wrong, my husband is a good man, a loving father. But when it comes to his mom, he freezes. Like many men caught in the middle of husband-mom drama, he tries to keep the peace by staying neutral. But in situations like this, Silence feels like betrayal. And here's the thing, we weren't even arguing. I showed him the message, he shook his head, and that was it. No confrontation, no defense, just quiet discomfort. And that's where the real loneliness creeps in. Because it's not just about what she said, it's about who's willing to stand beside you when it matters. That's why I spoke up, not to embarrass her, not to stir drama, but to remind myself and her that I won't be rewritten. Because once you allow someone to distort your story, it opens the door for more. And that's how so many crazy MIL stories begin, with a little lie and a big silence. I think we need to normalize something. Defending yourself isn't disrespectful. Speaking up against a lie isn't toxic. And refusing to be gaslit by family? That's not overreacting. That's survival. So let me ask you this. When a family member tries to rewrite your reality, do you stay quiet to keep the peace? Or do you speak up and risk being called the problem? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This isn't just a family betrayal podcast. This is a safe space for real talk. For those of us caught in the crossfire between truth and tradition. Because in the end, this isn't about sides. It's about respect. And sometimes, the loudest thing you can do is calmly tell the truth. Do you ever feel like you're playing a game you never agreed to join? That's exactly how it felt after my mother-in-law labeled me as overreacting. And you know what came next? Radio silence. No apology, no accountability, just that subtle shift in attitude, the kind where you know she's painting herself as the victim now. Classic. It's strange how some people twist the story so well you start questioning your own reaction. Was I too direct? Should I have just let it go? Am I feeding into drama? But let's be honest, this wasn't some small slip-up. This was a calculated comment meant to undermine me as a mother, and when someone uses family betrayal to gain sympathy or social points, that's not a misunderstanding. That's manipulation. And yet, she didn't confront me directly. She didn't ask to talk. She simply started acting different, cold, detached, passive-aggressive. That's the thing with toxic mother-in-law behavior. It's rarely explosive. It's a slow, quiet erosion of trust, one tiny cut at a time. But here's where it gets more complicated. We had a small family gathering a few days later. Nothing big, just dinner at a house. I didn't want to go, but my husband encouraged it. Said it would smooth things over. Spoiler alert, it didn't. She greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. All night, she made little digs dressed up as jokes. You look tired. Must be hard when some moms don't take breaks. Glad the baby's doing okay without that weekend trip, huh? It was like watching a live version of every narcissistic mother-in-law story out there, except this one was mine. The worst part, she made sure to say these things in front of others, but just subtle enough that calling her out would have made me look like the instigator. That's the trap, isn't it? These crazy MIL stories aren't always screaming matches. They're mind games, emotional chess. And if you've never experienced that kind of toxic family dynamic, it's easy to say, just ignore it, or don't let her get to you. But ignoring disrespect doesn't make it go away. It teaches people how to treat you. I left that dinner feeling heavy, not just from the tension, but from the realization that this isn't going to change on its own. And unless I draw clear boundaries, it will only escalate. So here's my question for you. How do you handle subtle disrespect from a family member when calling it out only makes you look like the bad guy? Is it better to stay silent for the sake of peace or speak up for the sake of self-respect? Let's talk about it. This isn't just a relationship drama podcast. It's a space for people who've been through the same quiet wars and walked out stronger, because sometimes the loudest toxicity is the kind that wears a smile. Have you ever reached that moment where you realize, this isn't about her anymore. It's about you? After that dinner, I couldn't shake off the emotional fog. You know the one, when everything on the outside seems calm, but your mind keeps replaying every little comment, every fake smile, every loaded joke. That's the weight of dealing with a toxic mother-in-law who's mastered the art of subtle sabotage. So I took a few days, not to stew, not to vent, but to think. And the question that kept coming back to me was this. What do I want to model for my child? Because if my baby could grow up and see how I let someone disrespect me again and again without standing my ground, what would that teach them about boundaries, about self-worth? And that's when I made my decision. Not revenge, not silence, but clarity. I sat down with my husband, just us, no distractions, and told him I needed his partnership, not just in parenting, but in family dynamics. I explained that what had happened wasn't just a one-time comment. It was a pattern of behavior that chipped away at trust. To his credit, he listened. He didn't try to defend her. He didn't brush it under the rug. And maybe that's what gave me the strength to move forward. The next step, I wrote a message to his mum. I didn't attack her. I didn't list grievances. I simply said, I'm not comfortable with being misrepresented in front of others. If you have concerns or thoughts about me, I'd appreciate it if we could talk directly. I want a peaceful relationship, but it has to be based on mutual respect. No drama, no shouting, just a boundary. And of course, she didn't respond right away. That's expected in most crazy millimile stories, right? The silence tactic, the power play. But here's the thing. I didn't write it for her. I wrote it for me, for my peace, for my dignity. Because when you deal with narcissistic mother-in-law behavior or toxic family patterns, the goal isn't to win. It's to stay grounded, clear, honest, especially when the other person thrives on manipulation and blurred lines. It's not about cutting people off. It's about cutting off access to your peace if they continue crossing boundaries. So now we're in this weird, quiet phase. She's distant, yes, but also careful. Maybe the boundary scared her. Maybe it confused her. But either way, it gave me room to breathe. And maybe that's the win we don't talk about enough in these relationship drama podcast conversations. Not getting someone to change, but getting yourself back. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever set a boundary with a family member that changed the dynamic? Did it bring peace or just more silence? Let's open that door together, because in these wife versus mother-in-law stories, sometimes the strongest revenge is choosing respect over reaction. Have you ever noticed how peace sometimes feels uncomfortable? That's the space I've been living in lately. After setting that boundary with my mother-in-law, things didn't explode. There were no screaming matches, no dramatic scenes, just a strange, quiet shift in the atmosphere. Cold smiles, short conversations, that tightrope feeling during family dinners where everyone pretends nothing happened, but everyone knows it did. And honestly, that silence used to scare me. I used to think that keeping the peace meant keeping everyone happy, that avoiding conflict meant I was doing the mature thing. But now, I realize it's not real peace if it only exists when you're the one staying small. That's why this story isn't really about her anymore. It's about me. It's about all of us who've dealt with toxic mother-in-law situations or been caught in the web of crazy mill stories, trying to balance respect with self-preservation. It's about drawing lines not to push people away, but to protect our energy and identity, especially when we're building families of our own. It's also about relearning what family means. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who respect your boundaries, who uplift you, who don't weaponize your choices. And sometimes, yes, those people aren't your in-laws, and that's okay. So, where does that leave me now? I'm choosing peace, but my kind of peace. The kind that doesn't come with guilt or silence. The kind that allows me to show up as a mother, a wife, and a woman who values honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. My relationship with my husband has gotten stronger. Why? Because I stopped expecting him to fix the dynamic and started inviting him to be part of the solution. That subtle shift, asking for partnership, not protection, changed everything. And my relationship with myself, stronger than ever. So if you're listening right now and you felt that sting, that passive dig from a family member, that public embarrassment disguised as a joke, or that familiar script of, you're overreacting, just know this. You're not alone. This is a safe space. This is your family betrayal podcast, your relationship drama podcast, your support system in audio form. And hey, if any of this hit close to home, I want to hear from you. Drop a K in the comments if you've ever had to set a boundary with a mother-in-law. Just that, a simple K. You don't have to explain anything. You don't even need to share your story unless you want to. But let's show each other that we're not alone in this, because behind every K is someone who chose truth over silence.